The small town of Cedarwood, Minnesota was a place of beautiful seasonal changes. This spring was particularly warm, and Amy Walker was preparing breakfast in the kitchen, basking in the morning light. Sunlight gently illuminated the wooden table as the aroma of coffee filled the room. Amy had once worked as a nurse at the town's general hospital, but now she devoted herself to raising her 10-year-old son, Noah. "Mom, I finished my homework." Noah's voice called from the living room, making Amy smile. Signs of fatigue still showed on her cheeks. Since her miscarriage 3 months ago, her mental state had been unstable, and her doctor had advised her to rest for a while. Every night, her husband Thomas would hold her and gently say, "It's okay, we can try again. Breakfast is ready. Could you wake up Dad?" Amy heard Noah's footsteps racing up the stairs. Thomas worked as a site supervisor at Atlas Construction. His honesty and meticulous work ethic earned him trust among his colleagues. On weekends, Thomas always made time for family, taking Noah to baseball practice or doing gardening with Amy. "Good morning, beautiful," Thomas said as he entered the kitchen and kissed Amy's cheek. There were dark circles under his eyes, and he looked pale. "Another all-nighter?" Amy asked worriedly. "You've been pushing yourself too hard lately." Thomas shrugged. "The deadline for a big project is approaching. And..." He hesitated. "It's fine, things will settle down soon." Amy studied her husband's face intently. He seemed to be hiding something. For the past few weeks, Thomas had been immersed in paperwork after coming home, showing signs of sleep deprivation and loss of appetite. Whenever she expressed concern, he would smile and deflect. "Dad, you promised to play catch with me this Saturday, remember?" Noah said as he sat at the table. "Of course, champ," Thomas gently ruffled his son's hair. "I'll keep my promise." After breakfast, Amy sent a message to her close friend Lisa. "I'm worried Thomas is hiding something. Can we meet and talk soon?" Lisa was a teacher at Cedarwood Elementary School and one of Amy's few close friends. They had a habit of meeting at a cafe once a week to share their thoughts over tea. Dad was on the phone in the living room in the middle of the night, Noah mentioned one morning. He was talking really quietly. Amy wondered who Thomas had been speaking with at that hour. She decided to ask him directly. "Is something bothering you?" Amy quietly asked when her husband returned from work that evening. "You seem different lately." Thomas froze for a moment. A look of anxiety flashed in his eyes, but quickly turned into a smile. "Just work stress," he said, taking her hand. "It'll be resolved soon, don't worry." One weekday morning, Thomas got up earlier than usual. He carefully knotted his tie and packed something into his work bag. "You're early today," Amy said, rising from bed to help with his preparations. "It's an important day," Thomas answered quietly. "Today might be special." He held Amy for a long time and kissed her more deeply than usual. "I love you," he said as he opened the door. "No matter what happens, I want you to remember that." Amy was puzzled by her husband's strange behavior, but she went about her usual routine, sending Noah off to school and starting on household chores. In the afternoon, as she was watering flowers in the garden, a police car stopped in front of the house. 2 officers approached with solemn expressions. "Are you Amy Walker?" the older officer asked. "We need to talk to you." Amy's heart began to race. The officer's words reached her ears. Thomas had been involved in an accident at the construction site where a scaffold collapsed, and he'd been rushed to St. Mary's Hospital. "Please take me there now," Amy said with a trembling voice. She contacted Lisa, asking her to pick up Noah from school. At the hospital, Amy rushed to the reception desk. "I'm Thomas Walker's family." The nurse's expression darkened, and she went to call a doctor. Fear spread through Amy's heart. She was led down a long hallway to a small room where a doctor was waiting, along with Robert Crane, Thomas's boss. The doctor spoke quietly. I'm very sorry to tell you this, but your husband passed away en route to the hospital. Amy's world collapsed. She lost her words and fell to the ground. The doctor's explanation didn't register: the fall from a height, the severe internal injuries, how he died without regaining consciousness. He was an excellent employee, Robert Crane said. But there was a strange coldness in his voice. The company will provide maximum compensation. Amy covered her face with trembling hands. I want to see him. Robert exchanged glances with the doctor. Actually, we should complete the paperwork first, he said hurriedly. Regarding the arrangements for the body. Amy felt something off about his words. Why such a rush? She wiped her tears and was escorted to the morgue to say a final goodbye to her husband. As she held Thomas's cold hand, she remembered his words from that morning. Today might be special. The day of the funeral was rainy. Thomas's colleagues, friends, and Amy's former co-workers gathered at the small church in Cedarwood to mourn his sudden death. Noah clutched a photo of his father and barely spoke. Amy simply nodded at the words of condolence from others, feeling detached from reality. A week after the funeral, Amy sat at the kitchen table with a stack of bills. Even amid her grief, practical problems awaited her. The doorbell rang, and she was surprised to see who was at the door. Mr. James, Amy recognized Atlas Construction's lawyer. Please come in. James Petro was a thin man in his mid-50s with a perpetually calm expression. He opened his leather briefcase and took out some documents. Mrs. Walker, I'm here to explain the official compensation from the company, he said in a businesslike tone. We're ready to provide the life insurance and workers' compensation payments. The documents showed figures that made Amy's eyes widen, though she felt the amount was too small in exchange for her husband's life. However, to receive this compensation, you'll need to sign this document. James handed her another paper. It's a confidentiality agreement not to disclose details about the accident to outside parties. Amy took the document but didn't sign it. I'll need to think about this. James's expression hardened. Of course, but please handle it promptly. The company wants to settle this matter quickly. After he left, Amy called her friend Jennifer Morris, a lawyer. The two had been friends since college, and Jennifer worked at a law firm in Minneapolis specializing in labor issues. There's no need to rush, Jennifer advised over the phone. That document is designed to protect the company from legal liability. Don't sign anything before having a lawyer review it. The next day, Amy began sorting through Thomas's belongings. She opened his closet and handled each suit and work outfit one by one. His scent still lingered. Finally, she entered Thomas's study and noticed his desk was unnaturally tidy. She frowned when she realized his work laptop was missing. Amy called Atlas Construction. I'd like to retrieve my husband's belongings. Company property belongs to the company, came the administrative female voice. Personal items were boxed by security and given to you. Checking Thomas's cell phone, she found that all call histories and messages had been deleted. Doubts began to grow in Amy's mind. Had her husband really died in an accident? That afternoon, she received a call from an unknown number. Is this Amy Walker? It was a deep male voice. I'm Sam Collins, Thomas's friend and a doctor at St. Joseph's Hospital. Amy recognized the name. Thomas had occasionally mentioned this friend from medical school. Why are you calling? I need to speak with you in person. Sam's voice was tense. Did Thomas leave anything behind? Amy was confused. What do you mean? Let's talk in a safe place, Sam said before hanging up. Can you meet me at Willow Creek Cafe tomorrow at 11? The next day, Amy met Sam at the cafe. He had honest features and seemed constantly vigilant. Thomas and I kept in touch occasionally, Sam said while stirring his coffee. He seemed worried about something recently. Did he tell you anything? About what? Amy was confused. About work, especially. Sam appeared to be choosing his words carefully. About a particular project. Amy shook her head. He didn't share many details about his work. Sam's shoulders drooped in disappointment. If you find anything, please contact me. For Thomas's sake. On her way home, Amy noticed an unfamiliar black sedan reflected in her car mirror. Though anxious, she decided it must be her imagination. That night, she was awakened by a knock at the door. The clock showed 10 p.m. When she opened the door, a middle-aged man with a tired expression stood there. I'm Mike Jensen, the man said quietly. I worked with Thomas until 5 years ago. I need to talk to you. Amy cautiously invited him in. What is this about? Mike glanced out the window, checking. Thomas's death wasn't an accident, he suddenly said. Amy felt a tightness in her chest. What do you mean? He had discovered company irregularities. Mike lowered his voice. Safety code violations, bribery, use of substandard building materials. He was gathering evidence. Why didn't he tell me? Tears welled in Amy's eyes. Probably to protect you, Mike said with a serious expression. He must have hidden the evidence somewhere. Do you have any idea where? Amy shook her head. Mike handed her his business card and said, "Contact me if you find anything," before leaving. Looking out the window, she saw the same black sedan parked on the street. The next morning, Amy made a decision. To learn the truth, she headed to the hospital where Thomas had died. Using her connections as a former nurse, she managed to meet with Dr. Bradford, the physician who had handled the case. I'll be honest, the gray-haired doctor said as he closed his office door. Your husband's injuries were very unusual. What do you mean? Amy's heart raced. They didn't match the typical pattern for injuries from a fall from height, the doctor explained, showing her the medical records. They more closely resembled blunt force trauma. Amy covered her mouth with trembling hands. Why wasn't this reported? I tried to report it, the doctor looked at her with tired eyes. But I was instructed from above to process it as a routine accidental death. Thomas's body. Amy choked on the words. It should have been cremated, the doctor said quietly. However, Dr. Martin, the medical examiner, has actually preserved the body for a more thorough investigation. You should talk to him. Amy steeled herself to uncover the truth about her husband's death. The county medical examiner's building was a gray, box-like structure built in the 1960s. Amy gave her name at the reception and mentioned her appointment with Dr. Martin. Please wait a moment, the receptionist called on the intercom. The doctor will be with you shortly. A few minutes later, a tall man in his mid-60s appeared. With silver hair and a well-groomed mustache, he extended his hand. Mrs. Walker, Dr. Martin said with a serious expression. It's an honor to meet you. Please, follow me. Amy followed the doctor through maze-like corridors, her heart pounding heavily. What had happened to Thomas's body? Why hadn't it been cremated as planned? Let's talk in my office. Dr. Martin opened a door and invited Amy in. Medical certificates and awards adorned the walls. Please, have a seat. Amy sat down on the sofa with trembling legs. Doctor, what happened to my husband's body? Dr. Martin turned to his computer and entered something. As you may have heard from Dr. Bradford, there were unnatural aspects to your husband's injuries. He turned the monitor toward Amy. Normally, an autopsy is conducted to confirm the cause of death in accidents. However, I sensed something was off. The screen displayed CT scan images. It wasn't apparent in the initial examination, the doctor enlarged part of the image. But upon more detailed investigation, a foreign object was found near your husband's back. Amy looked at the doctor with a confused expression. What do you mean by a foreign object? Something unusual was discovered that wouldn't be found in a routine autopsy, Dr. Martin said quietly. It was only confirmed through CT scanning. The doctor displayed another image. A small shadow was visible below Thomas's shoulder blade. This was artificially implanted. Implanted? Amy's voice trembled. Is it, for medical purposes? Dr. Martin shook his head. No, it cannot be explained as a medical device. Medical devices are never implanted in such a location. Various possibilities ran through Amy's mind. Did her husband have a hidden illness? Or something else? Amid her confused thoughts, she made a decision. Show me, she said with a trembling voice. I want to see with my own eyes what's in my husband's body. Dr. Martin hesitated momentarily but nodded when he saw Amy's determined expression. All right. But please prepare yourself. They left the office and took the elevator down to the basement. Walking down the hall, they arrived at a heavy metal door. Dr. Martin swiped a keycard to open it. This is the autopsy room. The room was brightly lit, with a metal examination table in the center. On it lay Thomas's body, covered with a white sheet. Amy's legs trembled and she felt breathless. Dr. Martin checked her expression and proceeded slowly. Ma'am, we found something incredible inside his body. Dr. Martin gently lowered part of the sheet, exposing Thomas's back. There was a small incision here. Not for medical purposes. It's a mark where something was implanted. Amy touched her husband's cold skin with trembling hands. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Why? She said in a hoarse voice. Why would he do this? I don't know, the doctor answered quietly. But we need to examine the contents. Is that all right? Amy nodded silently. Dr. Martin prepared everything and carefully took a small scalpel. He made a small incision in Thomas's back and probed inside with thin forceps. Tension filled the room. Here it is, the doctor said quietly. At the tip of the forceps was a small metal object. It looked like a cylindrical titanium capsule. About 2 centimeters long, with a diameter slightly thicker than a pencil lead. This was found inside his body. Dr. Martin placed the capsule on a small metal tray. Amy stared at the small object. What is this? Let's open it. The doctor carefully twisted the end of the capsule with extreme caution. The capsule opened, revealing a small memory card and a tiny folded document. Amy collapsed to her knees at that moment. She began to cry out loud. Thomas, why? Why did you do this? Dr. Martin supported Amy and helped her to a nearby chair. Mrs. Walker, people who hide things in this manner are often feeling extraordinary danger. After a while, Amy regained her composure. She wiped her tears and stared at the contents of the capsule. I want to see what's inside. They left the autopsy room and returned to Dr. Martin's office. The doctor inserted the memory card into his computer and displayed the contents on the screen. The first images were photos of construction sites. They had dates and locations recorded, showing what appeared to be clear safety violations. Next were screenshots of emails. They contained instructions from Atlas Construction executives to site supervisors, ordering them to use dangerous materials to cut costs. This is evidence, Amy gasped. Scrolling further revealed bank transaction records. They showed large money transfers from Robert Crane to a politician. Records of bribe payments. Dr. Martin whispered. Next was an audio file. When the doctor played it, a conversation between Robert Crane and another man could be heard. They were discussing plans to bribe local officials to obtain construction permits. He recorded everything, Amy said with a trembling voice. Finally, a folder labeled Past Victims appeared. Opening it revealed a list of employees who had accidentally died at Atlas Construction. It included names of multiple employees who had attempted to become whistleblowers. He was risking his life to reveal the truth, Dr. Martin said quietly. The last file contained contact information and instructions for FBI agent Lisa Morrison. Thomas had contacted the FBI and become a cooperator in gathering evidence. Amy was speechless. With mixed feelings of sadness and anger, she stood frozen. "Why didn't you tell me?" she whispered. "To protect you from danger," Dr. Martin said gently. "Possessing such evidence means putting one's life at risk." Amy's face showed determination. "I know what to do with this evidence." In her mind echoed Thomas's words from the morning before his death, "Today might be special." He had planned to submit the evidence. And perhaps someone had killed him to prevent that. Amy clutched her husband's final message with trembling hands. As rain pattered against the window, Amy stared at FBI agent Lisa Morrison's contact information recorded on Thomas's memory card. In the room shrouded in darkness, she decided to call Lisa. After several rings, a cool female voice answered. "Morrison speaking. Is this Lisa Morrison?" Amy's voice trembled with tension. "I'm Amy Walker, Thomas Walker's wife." There was a moment of silence on the other end. "Mrs. Walker," Lisa's voice carried tension. "I was expecting your call." "You were in contact with Thomas," Amy said quietly. "Yes," Lisa admitted frankly. "Your husband had been our informant for 3 months. Please accept my deepest condolences for his death." Amy took a deep breath. "Evidence was found in his body. I think I should give it to you." "Let's meet as soon as possible," Lisa said urgently. "But don't let anyone know. Your safety is the priority." The next morning, Amy headed to the designated location, a small cafe in the suburbs. By the window sat a dignified black woman in her mid-40s. She nodded slightly when she saw Amy. "I'm Lisa Morrison," she said in a low voice, showing her badge. "Please sit next to me." Amy did as she was told. Lisa continued while watching their surroundings vigilantly. "Only a limited number of people in our department knew about Thomas's contact. He was a brave man." Amy handed over the memory card she had discovered days earlier. "This is everything. Dr. Martin, the medical examiner, has also verified the contents." Lisa took the card and placed it in an inner pocket of her jacket. "We'll proceed with the investigation based on this evidence. However, it may take some time." "How much time?" Amy showed a hint of impatience. "Several weeks to build a solid case," Lisa answered honestly. "In the meantime, I'm concerned about your and your son's safety." Amy's face showed determination. "I'll continue investigating too. I can't bear to just wait." Lisa studied her intently. "It involves danger. Atlas Construction is an influential company. This is evidence Thomas gathered at the cost of his life. I can't let his death be in vain." After returning home, Amy contacted her lawyer friend Jennifer. She told her about Thomas's evidence and asked for help. Jennifer visited Amy's house the next day after finishing work. "This is a big problem," Jennifer said while analyzing copies of Thomas's notes. "He not only uncovered Atlas Construction's use of dangerous materials but also their collusion with politicians. They focused on a name written in the notes, Arthur King. King was an influential politician on the state construction committee. Atlas Construction bribed him to bypass safety inspections," Jennifer pointed to the notes. Amy's smartphone rang. It was a message from Sam Collins, "Need to meet. Urgent." 2 hours later, Sam was at Amy's house. With a tired expression, he said, "Did you find Thomas's device?" Amy was surprised. "You knew about it?" Sam heaved a deep sigh. "I implanted it," he quietly confessed. "Thomas came to my office 4 months ago. He felt his life was in danger and needed a way to protect important evidence." "Why didn't he tell me?" Amy's voice trembled. He chose this method to protect his family, Sam explained gently. He believed not knowing would keep you safe. The next day, when Amy checked her mailbox, she found an envelope with no sender name. Inside was just a note. The message, "Stop investigating." For Noah's sake too, made her blood run cold. Several days later, as Amy parked her car in the supermarket parking lot, a familiar car pulled up beside her. It was Robert Crane. "Mrs. Walker," he lowered his window, displaying a fake smile. "How are you?" Amy tried to ignore him and walk away, but Robert got out of the car and blocked her path. "You shouldn't stick your nose in unnecessary matters," he said in a low voice. "You and Noah might be in danger." "Is that a threat?" Amy replied without flinching. "It's advice," Robert answered coldly. Thomas was mentally unstable. "What he said or left behind is just fabrication." "I will reveal the truth about my husband's death," Amy said with a voice full of determination. "And what you people are hiding." Robert's face twisted with anger. "Stop chasing fantasies. You can't do anything." 2 weeks later, Amy's doorbell rang in the morning. Lisa Morrison stood there. Behind her were several FBI agents. "Today, we're searching Atlas Construction," Lisa said quietly. "We have sufficient evidence. Arrest warrants have been issued for several executives, including Robert Crane." Amy covered her mouth with trembling hands. "Really? Would you like to be present?" Lisa asked. "I can't guarantee complete safety, but you have the right." Amy took a deep breath. "I'll go." When they arrived at Atlas Construction headquarters, several FBI vehicles were already parked in the lot. As agents entered the building, employees watched with confused expressions. Lisa stood protectively beside Amy, directing operations. As Amy watched, Robert Crane was handcuffed and led out of the building. His face was contorted with anger and fear. When he spotted Amy, his eyes widened for a moment. Reporters began to gather, and camera flashes popped. Lisa turned to Amy. "Would you like to make a statement?" Amy stepped forward on trembling legs and stood before the reporters. "My husband, Thomas Walker, risked his life to expose wrongdoing at Atlas Construction," she said, fighting back tears. "He sacrificed his life to save others." Her voice grew stronger. "He fought for the truth, and I will continue that fight. So that his death will not be in vain." Camera flashes illuminated her tears. Behind her, Atlas Construction executives were being arrested one after another, and boxes of documentary evidence were being carried out. For the first time, hope for justice kindled in Amy's heart. Thomas's whistleblowing had become the starting point of a major scandal that would shake the entire construction industry, not just one company. The evidence he had gathered was indeed worth risking his life to reveal. As morning sunlight illuminated the marble columns of the state courthouse, Amy stood on the witness stand with a tense expression. The courtroom was packed with spectators, all eyes on her. After 3 months of preparation, the trial of the Atlas Construction executives had finally begun. "Mrs. Walker, please tell us in your own words," Prosecutor Patricia Green gently encouraged. Amy took a deep breath and found her voice. "My husband risked his life for justice," her voice gradually strengthened. "He discovered that dangerous building materials, ignored safety standards, and bribes to politicians were putting people's lives at risk, so he gathered evidence." Robert Crane sat in the defendant's box, listening with a cold expression. His team of lawyers busily took notes. "Why did your husband hide this evidence inside his body?" the prosecutor asked. "It was to protect his family," tears welled in Amy's eyes. "He wanted to reveal the truth, but he also knew it would put us in danger." The long days of the trial continued. Amy settled into a routine of taking Noah to school, heading to the courthouse, listening to testimony, and reviewing evidence. Eventually, faced with overwhelming evidence, Robert Crane was found guilty of murder and corporate crimes. Congressman Arthur King also fell from grace for accepting bribes, and Atlas Construction was fined heavily and ordered to pay compensation to victims' families. 6 months after the verdict, Amy sat face-to-face with Robert Crane in the state prison's visiting room. The man who once held tremendous power now wore prison clothes and had an exhausted expression. "Why did you come?" Robert asked in a dejected voice. "I wanted to see you," Amy answered quietly. "I wanted to know why you killed Thomas." Robert remained silent for a long time. "It was fear," he finally said. "Fear that everything would collapse. My status, my property, everything I had built." Tears formed in his eyes. "What have I done?" "I won't forgive you," Amy said calmly. "But I believe my husband would have wanted your remorse." A year later, Amy and Noah's lives had changed dramatically. Carrying on Thomas's legacy, Amy had begun advocating for improved safety standards in the construction industry. Her campaign culminated in the Walker Law, new legislation to protect workers' safety. A true family isn't just about blood ties, but about people fighting for the same justice. Amy spoke powerfully, holding a microphone at an activity report meeting. Sam Collins, Dr. Martin, FBI agent Lisa, and others sat in a corner of the venue. They had become core members of the Whistleblower Protection Group and Amy's new family. Noah sat in the front row, proudly watching his mother. Now 12 years old, he always carried his father's photo and often said, "Dad was a hero." After the lecture, Amy visited Thomas's grave on a small hill. Spring winds ruffled her hair, and the scent of flowers placed on the gravestone wafted through the air. "The seeds of truth you gathered have grown into a tree of new hope," she spoke quietly. "Your courage has saved many lives and will continue to save more." She placed her hand on the gravestone and smiled. "Noah is growing up well. He's very proud of you." As the twilight light embraced her, Amy looked up at the sky. Sorrow still resided in her heart, but alongside it had sprouted certain hope and purpose. Thomas's sacrifice had opened the path to a better future.